you could be a higher information voter and still be undecided. Well, Trump always got the last word because one thing I didn't like about Harris is hello, Paul Bloom.
Hello, Bob. How are you?
I'm fine. And you know who I am? I'm Robert Wright, publisher of the Non-Zero newsletter. You know who you are? You're Paul Bloom, publisher of the Small Potatoes newsletter. Everyone should subscribe to both.
Yes. It's been so long since you and I have talked on this podcast that I forget what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to go. It's becoming very awkward.
I'll guide you through the process. I'm a veteran.
If people are watching this, we should just talk about the elephant in the room, which is you are in a different location. I understand it's undisclosed.
It's a secure,
this is not your
undisclosed
normal
location.
library.
Yeah, as Dick Cheney used to say. What an excellent segue.
What?
Because Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris, and there was a debate last night. But Paul, I should apologize. I may have trouble. Like, I'm going to try to focus on this conversation, but I'm a little weirded out by something that happened just this morning.
Oh, tell me.
So have you ever seen, like, on camera my dog Milo?
Yes, of course.
Well, this morning Milo was eaten by a Haitian immigrant. Oh, it's funny. It's not your dog. It's funny, right, Paul? It's hilarious. It's hilarious. The doggy Holocaust unfolding right now in America is just fun and games until if you're off in Canada, right? Your borders are secure.
Our borders are secure, but yeah, your pets are in serious danger. I understand.
Man, I thought I'd get a little sympathy. I came here for sympathy, Paul, but whatever.
It's a terrible thing. You have to elect for president to deal with these Haitians and their dog and cat eating practices.
Yeah, I went into and by the way, I had assumed they'd be civilized enough to cook them, right?
They eat them
Wrong. Doggy tartar, Paul. Doggy tartar. And I went into the debate like kind of favoring Kamala, but I just don't think she's up to this challenge. I'm rethinking the whole thing.
I had questions about the Democratic ticket when I learned that her running mate Walt favors executing babies. I hadn't known that, and the executing babies is harsh.
Yeah, did that come out last night in the debate? I mean, Trump said something about they have the babies and then killed them. I know, but I didn't know if
he said that Waltz has come out in favor of executing babies. So that's radical. That's radical stuff.
Speaking of vice presidential candidates, Trump's running mate was actively pushing the pet eating meme on Twitter. I think the day before, and you wonder, like. I mean, J.D. Vance, I think, is smart enough when he sees something like this to suspect that maybe he should look into it before spreading the rumor. And for that reason, my opinion of him gets lower and lower. I increasingly think he's somebody who will do almost anything to get where he wants to go. But, yeah.
A lot of the problems J.D. Vance has gotten into were from statements he made before he was running as vice president, and maybe when he was much younger. His whole childless cat lady thing were often from podcasts and interviews from before.
Yeah, and now he's talking about catless child ladies, right? Because their cats were eaten.
There we go.
So yeah, I mean the whole thing. What did you think of the debate as an impartial Canadian?
As an impartial Canadian, very much supporting Kamala Harris, I was delighted. I thought this is not. I'll have some nice things to say about Trump actually at some point, just to be contrary. But
yeah,
Harris plainly won, and she was. This is. I feel like I should show this debate to students when I make the point. You got to be prepared when it comes to talks, when it comes to interviews. Be prepared. She had a bunch of really good 2-minute speeches. And when a question came in, relevant, not relevant, she'd go really good 2-minute speech. Goaded Trump, made her points, made a positive thing. In some way, it wasn't like a conversation. It was just a bunch of really good 2-minute. And Trump kind of winged it.
Kind of. Yeah, it was, and you're right. They were kind of set speeches. I would say that in debate, she is deft but not agile. she does not, like, for example, the pet thing, assuming she was familiar with the meme and was ready, a lot of candidates would have just taken him to town.
Yeah.
All she said was talk about extreme. I mean, you could have turned that into a more kind of comic moment or something at his expense, but she's very reluctant to wing it. And you know, I mean, she's very good. I agree. She was very good and very well prepared. And look, it matters that you have a president who's willing to do their homework. That's what you want. She really did her homework. But I still, you know, she still, I think and I almost think it's a confidence thing, that she would be fine in a more impromptu mode, reacting to some things in real time, but she avoids it, and she didn't have to do it last night.
She was disciplined. She was disciplined. She could have taken more chances, but she was, I think, you know, you can't argue with success. And the planes, and this is again not original. Everyone who saw this debate saw this, but her success in goading Trump. I mean, Trump's not a dumb man. He must have realized at some level when he's mocking the people saying that they're bored during his rallies and walking away, that she's trying to get under his skin, but he couldn't help it. So
well, that was what led to the cats and dogs thing immediately.
Right. He moves from his rallies to being the best rallies in America.
That's right.
Her rallies are the worst rallies in America. They had to bus people in. And by the way, immigrants are eating our cats, our cats and our dogs.
It's funny. I still am not sure what's going on inside his head. I mean, that's one example where sometimes you think of him as this totally meta guy, right? And it's all fun and games. He knows exactly what he's doing. And then other times he does act like an impulsive 13-year-old who just can't control himself. And the same with the cats and dogs thing. Like I said, I think J.D. Vance knows that he's being irresponsible at best when he spreads that stuff. But what is Trump thinking? He said it with such conviction. They're eating our cats and dogs. I mean, I think I have the exact quote here somewhere. It's so good. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people who live there. He said it with conviction. And sometimes I've thought, you know, when you ask, does he think things he says are true? It almost doesn't make sense to even, there's no truth about that question in Trump's head. His head just doesn't work like that. Yeah. But
he's the consummate bullshitter, which is, I don't even think he lies. I think he has no interest in the truth. He just says whatever's instrumentally useful.
Whatever works.
And the strange thing is that he could have done so much better, not merely by sort of being more restrained, but he actually had some fair points. His final speech, which I think he did kind of off the cuff, is if Harris was going to do all these things, why haven't, they've been president, they've been in power for 3.5 years. Why haven't they done it? That's actually a fairly good argument. Mm-hmm. He made it in kind of a rambling way when everyone's about to shut off their TV.
Mm-hmm.
No,
he did. I mean, he was good to get that in as the last punch. He was lucky that he was, he got the last word, and he made good use of that. And, all along on that score in particular, but I wish Harris would make a little more use of facts that work for her. Like, she could say, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'm pretty sure she could say, when you left office, the unemployment rate was X. Now it's Y.
Yeah.
What?
She said he left office with the highest unemployment rate in America.
Okay, that's something. But I mean, the real numbers, right. Yeah. I think the numbers are quite divergent. And I just think in general, there's a little more she could say, but people say I'm just naive and you shouldn't give the American people that much credit. And it's all about vibes. I don't know. But
I think a lot of it was about vibes. She was, and she succeeded in portraying a fairly optimistic vibe. And things are going well. Things are going to go better when I'm president. Trump, even for Trump, was at his most doomsday extreme. If Harris is elected in 2 years, Israel will not exist anymore. World War III is about to happen. This is America is its absolute worst state has ever been. And it's kind of a downer.
Well, it worked in 2016, and it almost worked in Of course, it didn't work in 2020 because at that point he was the incumbent, so it was singing a different tune. But
By the way, I think we both watched the Lex Friedman interview with Trump. Did you see
I
that?
did not. I did not.
I saw that, and the one of the moderators talked about the inconsistencies between Trump saying the election was stolen, more recently saying they lost by a whisker, and it's true. Trump said he's being sarcastic, but he wasn't. I heard him on Lex Friedman, and he just said in passing, "Yeah, I almost won the last one too." It's,
Hmm.
I'm surprised he didn't. I don't know.
Maybe he had been told to switch to that, but couldn't
Yeah,
control himself last night.
he calls it. There's so much inside MAGA language. I didn't know they call it J6. He just in passing says it
Yeah,
J6.
that was the first time I heard him say that. But yeah, I'm willing to go with that. The but anyway, I mean I have no idea how these things actually play out politically. And usually that's in part because I'm like, who the hell are these undecided voters at this point? I have no idea who they are. Now, in this case, because Kamala became candidate so recently, you could be a higher information voter and still be undecided. And I think for them, she did what she needed to do. She looked professional, articulate, presidential, I thought. I mean, different people have different, different reactions, but I thought on vibes, she should have appealed to those people. And she took advantage of the fact that I think to a lot of people, his act is just getting kind of old. Mickey Kaus tweeted something like that. Oh, it was, I find Harris's anguished head nodding phony and really annoying, but it's new annoying. Trump's tics are old annoying. I doubt everyone shared his view of her head nodding, but in any event, that's the point. It's just like, and I would say in terms of things being new and old, the Harris camp said right away, okay, we'd like round 2 in October. I'm not sure I'd do that. I mean, I'm not sure that would work in her favor because in general, there's a reversal of fortunes often between first and second debate.
Yeah.
Because the loser of the first benefits from lower expectations. They actually learn things about what they did wrong. Not sure Trump can do that, but if the lesson would be pretty simple if somebody could drive it into his brain. Also though, as you said, she gave her best set speeches. Yeah. I'm not sure she can do more than that in debate. I mean, I think she could if she'd relax, but I'm not sure she will. And so I kind of think if she has a second debate, some people will wish there had been more value added, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good issue. It depends how risk averse you are. I mean, she plainly won, but and Trump is going to remain Trump, but you could imagine him shifting a bit. He in his previous presidential debates, he often came out as a fairly different person from one debate to another, and he came in really hot for one, and then got a bit cooler for the other. He could change it. I think what Harris would probably do is come up with different 2-minute set speeches. They'll all be terrific. They'll all be smooth. But if there was more engagement, it could go differently.
Yeah. So I don't know if it'll happen.
Even in intangibles, like at the beginning of the debate, she walks up to Trump and introduces herself.
And, I only caught the last part of that. Did that work well? I mean, she's a lot smaller than him, I noticed. But did that seem to work visually?
I think it did. I think it worked somewhat to her advantage, or at least not to her disadvantage. That she's, she goes to him and everything. She's not.
What did she say? I'm Kamala Harris or something?
Yeah, I'm Kamala Harris, and he says something like,
fuck you.
Okay, no, let's have fun or something. I hope you have fun. But apparently, I read a clip in the. This is something which is very much of the fitting the whole thing. During the 2-minute break, they had a commercial break. Trump paces and glowers at people. And Harris just is at a pad, writing like crazy, taking notes, planning her thing. There's a workmanship, a preparation, a discipline I really like.
No, she did it. She did it, and she's good at that. Yeah. She's good at riffs. She also can be good in prosecutorial mode, kind of cross-examining someone, and I think maybe that's why they wanted the mics on. I will say, I mean, the way, who knows how this will play out in public opinion polls, but in terms of the, the consensus about what happened, about who won, first of all, on the betting markets, polling market before the debate, it was Trump has a 52% chance of being president. She had 46. And by the end of the debate, it was 49-49, where it more or less is today. That's a pretty big swing on the basis of the debate. Now, it's just bettors betting, but there's enough money on the line that a lot of these people are doing serious research. They have the sources, they're checking in real time. And so on. The other thing, and this gets us back to where I wanted to go. In terms of who won, I was watching CNN. Jake Tapper was falling all over himself to depict Trump as a complete nut, and I thought, well, that's CNN, and I switched to Fox, and Brit Hume was saying, nah, just Trump screwed up. He took the bait. He wasn't disciplined. Blah blah blah. So now there were Fox apologists, Hannity and so on, saying, well, the moderators were unfair. But it's a bad sign when that's what you're saying. Now, I think they were somewhat, in some ways, pro-Harris. Yeah. But the other thing they did is, each round, and this worked for Trump. Well, I don't know if it worked for him, but each round, they would start with a different person each round. And the idea was that each round, a different person would get the last word, right? Before they moved to the next question. Well, Trump always got the last word, because when he wasn't going to get it, he said, wait, I have to respond to that. He did it like 6 or 7 times. They let him do it every time. When Harris tried to do it twice, I think, and they didn't let her do it once. So the refs, and he talked more, if you look at the numbers.
Oh, that's true. Got quite a bit more. not disadvantage, but you're right. I think you got, because I had accepted the idea that they were biased in favor of Harris. I felt the questions were harsher to Trump. They were more like saying, what about you and January 6th? What about you and your, they were on attack more for him.
And the fact checking.
But then again, I mean, the whole cats and dogs thing, the states that kill the babies after birth.
Yeah, I will say that there is something that Harris and Biden keep repeating, that if you were a moderator who wanted to do fact checking, it's maybe a little more nebulous, but it's the find people on both sides thing. This drives Trump supporters crazy, because if you look at the transcript, he says, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists who should be condemned, wholly. But Biden and Harris, they use the fine people thing. And look, I'm not sure if she said it in a way that was factually inaccurate, but it's certainly.
No, I think she did say it in a way that was inaccurate. It's there's so many things you could say about Trump, but actually that's a cheap shot that's ended up in our cultural memory. And a lot of people who hate Trump, like, I don't know, Sam Harris and a lot of liberals have said, yeah, this is not, Trump is being mistreated in this way, and the moderators could have called her on that, if they had heard of it. So, can I say something nice about Trump?
Absolutely.
Well, whatever one says about him, his mental faculties seem fully intact. This was not a Joe Biden performance. He is extremely angry. He makes up stuff. Well, but that's Trump. But he talks quickly, fluidly, had no word finding problems, plucking out names and states and everything very quickly. He has this riffing style where he'll talk about something, like he'll say, oh, you'll never get your abortion thing through. It's this fantasy. It's just like student loans. And then he goes a riff on student loans. But then he'll pull back up to abortion, as if he got the. Sometimes he'll do a double layer thing, which requires a lot of memory, a lot of sort of verbal facility. He's quite good at that. So there's no sense in which I thought that this guy's out of it.
No, I thought early on, he was kind of doing fairly well. I mean, his style of speaking is, let's say, a bit elliptical sometimes. You almost have to get used to him to be able to always make sense of it. But
it's there. Pronouns. He often says they, and it's not clear who he's talking about.
Right.
And
Uh,
yeah,
he jumps a little, but um, at the same time, I think it maybe hurts in a certain sense. It maybe hurts him a little how relatively young he looks. He doesn't look, what is he, 78 or something?
yeah, 78.
He doesn't look that old, and so you almost expect better of him. Rhetorically, and you because I think you're right. You're fundamentally right, but I do think some of his lack of self discipline and a little, there were times when he seemed to be going off on tangents, especially later once he finally lost his cool over the crowd size thing. And I think some of that he wouldn't have been so bad about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And you expect better because he doesn't look his age. But
Yeah. And I think maybe a few years ago to show more self-control. I I admired and found in some sort of nasty way funny how well she poked him, because she poked him on, there's many ways to poke Trump, but and he could be tough and he could just dismiss it, but she
mhm,
repeatedly called him weak. She made
yeah.
fun of his rallies, which are so core to me. At one point, just out of the blue, just as a digression, she says, "Oh, he inherited his money from his father." And
Now,
it's
was that number, did she use the 400 million number? Because I think the
yeah,
true
she says
number
something
is
like that.
20 million. Why not use the true number if she did? Because I just heard his response where he said, no, it wasn't 400 million. 20 million's a lot to be handed.
That's right. He
Uh,
said it was a fraction of it, and then 20 million is a small fraction, but still, if my dad gave me 20 million, I'd be pretty happy.
so then why didn't she use the right number? I mean,
Yeah, no,
because that was in those dollars. I mean, people have done the math. If he had just put them in mutual funds, he'd be much richer than he is.
yeah. Well, so here's a theory to piss him off.
Yeah.
He lied about it so that he would get really. He said that's not true and piss him off.
That could be. That could be. Yeah, I'm too. You're right. I'm too much like a high school debater in the way I think about. Not that I was one, but I think about things that way.
So
And yeah,
can we move it up a level here, which is, are debates a good thing? So we put an enormous amount of weight on debates, which favor verbal fluidity, speed, ability to memorize a good speech, some really good one-liners that have been carefully planned and everything.
hmm
I could imagine somebody being a really good president who's a terrible debater, and somebody could be um, a great debater and a terrible president. They seem somewhat related,
yeah,
but I don't know. I think it's very much evolutionary psych, moral animal sort of stuff where we're watching people fight to be the alpha, and we're saying, let's watch them fight. We don't actually want to put them into a ring and have them physically fight. This is as close as we can get.
yeah. I think I actually think they're more valuable in the new mode where they shut off the mics. Although again, whenever Trump wanted to talk more, they turned on his mic, but there wasn't the interrupting.
Yeah.
So the the you know you saw, yeah, so I mean, like Kamala giving like set speeches, okay, well that's what presidents do. I mean, it matters. Is she going to do it in a way that is persuasive to people? Are they going to like it? I mean, that actually matters. And although they were set speeches, it was different from reading from teleprompter. And it was a little, it's like what she'll do a lot, going out knowing what she wants to say, but being a little spontaneous. And look, I mean, I thought we were reminded of what Trump is like. He's a
Yeah.
little unhinged, and we deserve to know that. So I think when there is all the interrupting, as there had been until this year, it's less valuable because that's just not, presidents aren't put in that situation,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And it favors raw aggression. It favors things which aren't necessarily. I agree. There's some overlap. Certainly in the Biden debate, it was good he had the debate because his failure to do the debate,
Right,
yes, he has serious failings as a president.
right.
And I'm surprised. I actually surprised the moderators didn't ask Harris about this because it's kind of where does Harris bear some responsibility for the fact that Biden does not seem fully competent to be president, and that this was covered up to some extent?
Now, did he
That
raise that?
so Trump repeatedly said that Biden doesn't like you. Does to Harris. Biden hates you.
That's
Uh,
so weird. I
but
mean, it may be true. It's just I don't see it being effective.
Trump has this complicated idea that Biden has been betrayed. I think Trump himself is very mad that Biden has left the stage and is angry that this has happened. Um, but he could have, or the moderators could have said, he did at some point say that Biden is it was a wonderful line, said Biden doesn't know he's alive, which is this. I think Trump says these very interesting
Yeah,
things.
no, he has his moments for sure. Um, that was another case where I thought, why doesn't she cite the facts when he says, this was a coup or however he put it? Say,
Yes,
like, look, the delegates who were elected in the primaries voted for me, and that's why I'm the nominee because Joe Biden dropped out, and so they couldn't vote for him, and they voted for me. Do you get that? That's the way it would work in any party. I
yeah.
mean, but I don't know. Again, maybe I would have been a better high school debater than a presidential debate coach.
You can't argue with success. She did very well.
Yeah. Um. So, and Taylor Swift, I didn't see the deep fake that
I didn't
led.
say either, but right after Harris's debate, Swift put out something, which of course it was like an hour afterwards. So I can't imagine she just kind of wrote it out. I imagine it was all set up in advance, saying that now she's putting her support behind Harris, and ended with a perfectly reasonable uh, way of expressing it. And then she ended by signing something like a childless cat lady, which which goes to sort of suggest that JD Vance has not been a big favor to Trump. It's sort of this unforced error. Like this is not good stuff for the Republicans.
Yeah,
Making fun of the childless seems like a bad idea.
I think that was something he did before he was a nominee, but
It's right. It's right. So
he's
so in
not
some
good
ways,
at
this is
walking these things back and just saying, "Oh, look, I was right." I
yeah.
mean, I don't think he's disavowed it as fully as he could.
And
Um,
Trump himself kind of brushed off Vance in the debate. I forget exactly what he said, but he said, "Yeah, it's not."
well, they said JD Vance says that you would sign a congressional bill banning abortion.
That's right.
And that's when Trump had to distance himself a little.
That's right.
Uh,
And this is again the fact that Trump has, I think, very few actual views. He came in when it was expedient for him. He was the most going to be a pro-life, best pro-life president ever. Now it's not working because of the Supreme Court, because of Dobbs. So now he's going to be the biggest defender of women's reproductive rights ever. And
yeah, I mean, logically, he can make the case. I mean, Roe versus Wade, repealing Roe versus Wade, didn't mean that abortion can't be legal in America. It did mean it's up to the states. I mean, he's right. It's a principled position. There are a lot of people, even left of center, who think Roe was a reach, the decision
yep,
itself. And the best thing is to leave it to either Congress or the states.
he tried to say it in this ridiculous Trumpian way, which is everybody in the world agrees Roe v. Wade was the absolute worst. And he could have just reasonably said that there were people who didn't like it, including people on the left. And
Yeah.
now it's left to the states, and states could choose and so on. Um, he could have presented his case much better.
Yeah. I didn't, one thing I didn't, like about Harris is, the foreign policy stuff. She felt the need to go pretty hardcore blob. Partly, I mean, Democrats have always been defensive about how hawkish they are and how tough they are in defense. You'd think that would be less necessary with Trump since he's the one saying, let's withdraw troops from X, Y, and Z. But I think also maybe she feels that because she's a woman, she has to say, we will have the most, not just the strongest military, the most lethal
Lethal.
military in the world and act
It
like,
was a line from the convention that got a lot of thumbs up.
yeah, she said the same thing there.
Yeah.
And acting like it's a disgrace to negotiate with your enemies, whether it's North Korea or the
Yeah.
Taliban. And the Taliban thing was, I don't know. It's like that was even worse than North Korea because they're the Taliban. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, look, they're the ones we were at war with. But anyway.
It might be because she's a woman. It might also be because that the attack that Trump does is she's extremely left. She hates the Jews, and by the way, she hates the Arabs too. It goes on, but
And I was wondering how that works.
who does she love?
I mean, actually, I think it is a non-zero sum game, so it's in principle possible. But I digress. Go ahead.
No, fair enough. You would have focused on the fact you could love them both, but you know the
Well,
corollary.
I think there is a win-win outcome that's in principle attainable that America has failed to encourage for 30 or 40 years now. But
Anyway,
go
she
ahead.
went down very hard on this attack that she's an extreme leftist. So she's very pro-Israel. She tried to moderate it somewhat, but made it clear she's very pro-Israel, very pro-Ukraine, very much in favor of fracking. Like I've never followed, but I've never heard somebody. She seemed to be incredibly in favor of fracking, because
Mhm.
apparently it's important in Pennsylvania. I don't follow this, and
Yeah.
she owns a gun, which actually I
Yeah.
didn't know.
No, she probably bought it last week. Who knows? But she owns one now, and
Yeah,
and
there's
Tim
at least
Walz, I'm
one
sure,
gun.
has long owned a gun, as she
Yeah.
said. Um, but no, it was strong. It was stronger than I thought
Yeah.
by a
You
long
could
shot.
you could have taken some of her speeches, put them back 12 years ago, and she'd be a Republican. As
Oh
she was
yeah, she has moved to the center, which is, you know,
what you're
the
supposed to
smart
do.
thing to do until it gets to the point where you look like you don't have any values, which is what Trump is trying to highlight. Of course, Trump himself, he was totally fine with abortion
Yep.
15 years ago. You know, he's
Yep.
he's uh and anyway. So we'll see. We'll see what the polls say.
I've heard Nate Silver make the argument that debates don't matter that much, with of course the big exception of the Biden debate,
Mhm.
but that for the most part they don't matter that much.
I think because Harris was irrelevant on quantity,
Yeah.
you would think that you would get more, undecideds tuning in this time. But I don't know what the ratings were like. And then there's the question of people who didn't watch it, or even some who did. Whose word do they take for figuring out
Yeah.
who won? And the media ecosystem has gotten pretty complicated. So I don't know, but when Fox is even Brett Hume on Fox is saying Trump didn't win, that's not a great sign.
Yeah. If things worked out differently and RFK was there, that would have shaken things up.
That would have shaken things up because his whole thing with animals would have added a new dimension to the
That's right.
Haitian
He
cat
has
thing.
enough. He would say,
It's
I have a new
like
perspective on
he,
this.
you
Yeah.
know, he took a chainsaw to a whale. He you
Something with
know,
the bear.
the bear thing. Yeah, it's like I don't know. I always just skin the bear on the spot, but whatever. I mean, I didn't understand why he took that
Yeah.
approach, but um, so. And then, Elon Musk helpfully offered when Taylor Swift said the childless cat lady thing, helpfully offered to father her child. He's such
Always
a
a
generous
gentleman.
man. He's such a
Always a
generous
gentleman.
man.
And take care of the cats.
Yeah, yeah, as you say, always a gentleman. Did she
He's
did she reply
not
like
not last night.
no thanks, I like them big or something, which would be a good double entendre? Because wait, her boyfriend, assuming there's still an item, is this tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? So
Yeah.
she could
Yep.
just say, I just meant the guys. I just meant the guys themselves. I like those big. You know,
Yeah.
should I be put in charge of her social media account? Do you think?
Almost certainly not. Almost certainly. I think for her fan base, the high road is
I don't know, man.
that's the
Things are
road.
getting wild and woolly in American culture. I
Yeah.
don't know what is too far anymore.
I sometimes think Elon Musk is not the most responsible person. I
Huh.
think I think as we've said, I think he is a man of extraordinary gifts. I think he's, and with the potential to do real good, but he's also has low impulse control, is kind of a pig, and and has caused himself so much damage through late night tweeting. You know, he's under investigation by the SEC, so he tweets that he makes his decisions while he's high. Just like this stuff like that. This was from a while ago. And this Taylor Swift, it's just it reminds me of Trump.
Well, yeah, he's I mean, they're both kind of edgelords, as they say, a word we talked about last. It's such a great word for a
Yeah.
whole species of people who are just using hyper edginess to elevate their prominence, and often their actual status. And no, he's one of a kind. And the thing, what's weird is how weird, like sometimes borderline deranged he seems, and yet how successful he is. I mean, he's had his ups and downs. Tesla has its challenges now, but he's done a lot of amazing shit, and he's got a huge amount of power. Are you you've seen this Brazil thing?
Yeah, they're banning him, or they have successfully banned Twitter X in Brazil.
Well, they started out wanting to get them to remove certain kinds of disinformation, I think, and Musk saying no, that would be a threat to refusing to do it on principle. This is now a left-wing government,
Yeah,
okay, and they want, and I think it's actually kind of an election denialism issue because Bolsonaro, the Trumpist,
yeah,
lost the election and so on. And Musk said, no, we won't do it. And so I think the judge said, well, then we'll ban Twitter. But the interesting thing is, and the judge mandated that all internet providers uh, participate in the banning of Twitter. And Musk said Starlink's not going to. And that's just like, it's like amazing that he has that lever. Now, he wound up backing down when he realized that Brazil had ways to shut down Starlink. But still, he's like, I mean, I think we're entering the age of international oligarchs, and could get weird.
I see that though. Maybe I know. Maybe there's things I don't know about this, but on principle, I'm inclined towards Musk's side, which is a government banning a social media product because they think it spreads misinformation. Seems to me sort of violates a lot of principles of free speech. I wouldn't be happy if I was Brazilian having the government or the courts tell me, "Oh, you can't have access to this information because we think that it." And not all of it, but just like a fraction of 1% of what they convey isn't true.
Well, first of all, let me say that the American government has exerted a certain amount of pressure that has had that effect. They don't mandate it, but and Musk was right about this. That the kind of various things, including the national security state, had been weighing in. They were in communication with the social media people. And Mark Zuckerberg has said he wishes he hadn't been so compliant. So
Yeah.
it's not as if no government pressure is exerted here. But the other thing is like, this isn't here. Brazil isn't here. Okay. It's like, and in fact, I gather that Musk has said in other contexts, like India, look, we follow the laws and the rules. We do what the government says. Well, maybe not coincidentally, India is run by, a Trumpist, basically, this ethno-nationalist guy. But when
Yeah.
it's a left-wing government telling Musk what to, I mean, I don't know the details of the India case, but I mean, first of all, I almost don't see a practical approach for an international social media company other than, look, we obey the laws, we do what the government says, or else you can just pull out. But which some people have done in some countries, but I don't buy your argument. It is not for Elon Musk to decide what is and isn't a violation of free speech in Brazil. Different countries have different rules. So I mean, it's one thing to defend the First Amendment. Brazil doesn't. I don't know what they have in the way of it's Brazil.
I make a more universalist argument. I mean, I'm not saying that Musk himself should have certain powers that other people don't have. It's more like to the extent that Brazil or India or China tries to block its citizens from sources of information, they shouldn't be doing that. That's wrong. So
Well, we try to block. We're about to ban TikTok. Is that wrong?
I think it probably. I think it's more complicated than banning it. My understanding is there's something about trying to shift who owns it and so on. But yeah,
Well, yeah, demand that it be American owned. Well, what if Brazil did that? Said, Elon, you have to sell your company to a Brazilian or we will shut it down. That would be
yeah,
okay.
yeah, I think that's wrong. I think, look, nobody's.
Well, then what we're doing with TikTok is wrong, to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
So nobody's a free speech absolutist. There's all sorts of things. You can say, look, you're not allowed to have child porn. You're not allowed to do extortion. You're not allowed to blackmail. You know, all these restrictions on speech. You know, you say, yeah, those are good restrictions. But I think, particularly when it comes to political speech, I just think we should applaud the spreading of it and condemn governments that restrict it, particularly when governments restrict it because it's critical of their government.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough call sometimes. I mean, that's why it just seems to me it's so messy. It's like, just as a practical matter, if you own a social media company, it's one thing, you know, to try to be very principled in your country and think about the ideals and laws and everything. But I just think as a practical matter, it's like, do I know whether the Brazilian government was making unreasonable demands? I mean, unreasonable in the context that different countries have different rules, right? Look, for example, there are libel laws, okay? The government says certain kinds of untruths are illegal. You will be punished, okay? Our government says that.
Yeah.
And you think Elon Musk should decide whether Brazil says the same thing. Certain kinds of untruths are not acceptable. And you think Elon Musk should say, well, now you've gone too far. Like, I don't know.
I'm not framing it in terms of what Elon Musk gets to say or doesn't. I think he tends to speak in favor of his
He can
own
do whatever he wants. I don't
but-
care. And right now, by the way, Twitter is still banned in Brazil. I said he backed off. He backed off the Starlink threat. But I think Twitter is still, you have to have a VPN to get it in Brazil.
It's more like, I think there are a lot of very difficult cases. So, British libel laws are different than American libel laws. You can have opinions on that, but there's different, reasonable people could disagree. But there are all sorts of cases where governments want social media companies and speech banned in general, journalism banned in general, just because it's critical of people in power. We don't want you to have a voice here because you're criticizing us. And, I prefer the American system of First Amendment and a more general culture where journalists are supposed to attack the government.
But I mean, the American system is political, and it's been political in different ways at different times. It's like, back in the age of broadcast media dominance before the internet, the FCC had this, what was the clause where you get to reply to blah, blah, blah.
Or something. Yeah, there's something.
Equal time. So anyway, in the 50s, Edward R. Murrow did this devastating thing about Senator Joseph McCarthy, which I applaud. And McCarthy said, I want equal time. And Eisenhower, I did my senior thesis on this, Eisenhower's relations with McCarthy. And, Eisenhower's press secretary in his diary says, I'm going to call the FCC chairman and get this nailed down. Like, they didn't leave the decision to the FCC. The White House said, no, you're not replying. Now, Joseph McCarthy, this is an excellent example. He was full of untruths, but you're saying that, if it's political untruth, let a million flowers bloom, right? That's your line. So you're saying that what Eisenhower did was wrong, I guess. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, America did it. Okay. That was America. And that happens in America. And you're acting as if the American system is better. And it is kind of, but it's just not so clear cut. It's just not so binary.
What I'm mostly saying is the American ideal is better, is a good ideal to aspire to. And we should hold places to that standard, including America. So there's been a lot of cases where people were thrown in prison in the United States for protesting against things like popular wars and so on. I condemn that. I just
Absolutely.
think so. In some way, there are hard cases. There are a lot of hard cases when it comes to speech. Nobody's a free speech absolutist. Nobody, everybody thinks there should be laws against blackmail and extortion and child porn and so on. And then there's like really genuinely hard cases. I think a lot of misinformation isn't such a hard case. I think the problem is that my information is your truth, and so particularly when over controversial issues, and I think the best policy is let people hash it out, and the state shouldn't intervene to keep some things that it deems information. That's hardly a neutral player from the minds of other people.
Well, I have a devastating riposte, but you know
Yeah.
what, Paul? You're not going to get it for free.
Are we going to move to the paywall for this devastating thing?
Paywall, that's kind of a harsh term.
No,
Paywall.
never
Paywall.
use the
You
term
know, it's
paywall.
like it's commercial. It's, I would say we're going into overtime.
Overtime.
And whereas you might say that this will be available to paid subscribers to either the Non-Zero Small Potatoes newsletter, I would say it will be available to members of the Non-Zero newsletter or paid subscribers of the Small Potatoes newsletter. And I personally think membership sounds more appealing than being a paid subscriber, but people can make their own decision.
Membership, it has its privileges. And in the paid, I have something here. We in the paid thing. So the problem is a lot of my topics, we haven't spoken for a little while. So a lot of my I've been traveling. A lot of topics are dated, but we could talk about raw dogging on flights.
It's a perfect, as I said, I told you what happened to Milo this morning. So yeah, let's talk about, but this, you mean something different, right?
You're in good form today. I like this, all the dog jokes. We could talk about the Holocaust denial on no, not too strong. Hitler, good guy, Churchill.
The Daryl Cooper, aka Martyr Maid controversy.
His discussion with Tucker Carlson, which I have just a few thoughts on. I'm sure you have plenty of thoughts on. Did you get around to reading Ted Chiang's article on AI in the New Yorker?
I didn't, but I'll let you. I'm willing to pass judgment on it based on your summary. I actually had him on my podcast years ago. You know, he wrote the short story that Arrival is based on, the movie Arrival. I had him on and talked about that and his work generally years ago. It's in the archives on YouTube.
For the New Yorker, wrote a short article based on a podcast that Sam Harris and I had, where we argued about the value of family versus strangers.
Oh, did he cite you?
Yeah. He said I listened to this podcast with Sam Harris and Paul Bloom, and here are my thoughts.
So this is a very self-serving thing you're bringing up.
The whole point was so I could get to say that story. We don't have to talk about Ted Chiang's article.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
anyway,
so we've done that.
Maybe for next week, but
we will talk about art, AI, and art.
Yeah. So much.
Raw dogging. I don't know what else. And I have the devastating riposte. I do want to talk about this a little longer, but so if people go to Non-Zero Substack or Small Potato Substack, assuming they go to the right Small Potatoes, Paul, but we won't get into that. They can become paid subscribers and I mean members and get, it's amazing. A lot of content. So, but thanks to everybody. Smash the like button. Do you have any appeals you'd like to make, Paul?
No, just be good to one another. Touch grass.
Touch grass. Yeah. Okay. And so now we're going into overtime.